The Iridian plasma blast tore through Princess Odin's armor, leaving her wounded and abandoned on the human starship. Her own people had forsaken her, retreating in the face of unexpected resistance from the Earth colonists of New Terra. As consciousness faded, Odin's alien eyes locked onto the approaching figure of Captain Derek Gordon, the human ship's commanding officer. Alarms blared throughout the vessel, signaling the aftermath of the Iridian Empire's surprise attack on humanity's largest off-world colony. The acrid smell of burnt circuitry and spilled hydraulic fluid permeated the air as Derek surveyed the carnage left in the wake of the fierce hand-to-hand combat between his security team and the Iridian boarding party. Derek's orders were clear: execute all Iridian intruders. But as he stood over the critically injured alien princess, he hesitated. Her purple blood pooled on the deck plating, a stark contrast to the sterile white of the corridor. In that moment, Derek made a decision that would alter the course of the interstellar war and risk his own career. "Medic!" he shouted, kneeling beside the fallen Iridian. "Get her to sickbay now!" As the medical team rushed to stabilize Odin, Derek's second-in-command approached, face contorted with confusion and anger. "Sir, what are you doing? We have orders to eliminate all hostiles." Derek met his officer's gaze, unflinching. "This isn't just any Iridian. She's their princess. She might have vital intelligence about their war plans. If we can keep her alive, we might just save humanity." News of the captain's controversial decision spread through the ship like wildfire. Crew members exchanged worried glances as they worked to repair battle damage and prepare for the next Iridian assault. In sickbay, doctors and nurses worked tirelessly to save the alien princess, their training overcoming their instinctive revulsion at her inhuman physiology. As Odin drifted in and out of consciousness, fragments of Iridian battle plans and fleet movements slipped from her lips. Derek stood vigil, recording every word, knowing that each piece of information could be the key to humanity's survival. Outside the medical bay, tension among the crew reached a boiling point. A group of security officers, still reeling from their losses in the hand-to-hand combat, confronted Derek. "Captain, with all due respect, that thing in there killed our friends," the lead officer snarled. "How can you justify saving its life?" Derek squared his shoulders, his voice level but firm. "I understand your anger, but right now, that thing is our best hope for survival. The Iridian fleet is regrouping, planning their next attack. If we can extract the information in Princess Odin's head, we might just have a chance to turn the tide of this war." As if to underscore his words, the ship's sensors blared a warning. The Iridian fleet was on the move, their massive warships cutting through space towards human-controlled territory. Little did they know that their abandoned princess, now under the care of their sworn enemy, held the secret to their downfall. In sickbay, Odin's condition began to stabilize. As Derek watched her alien features soften in sleep, he realized he no longer saw her as just an enemy combatant. She was a person, complex, vulnerable, and potentially the linchpin in humanity's fight for survival. The human captain and the alien princess, thrown together by the chaos of war, now stood at the precipice of an unlikely alliance. As Odin's eyes fluttered open, meeting Derek's determined gaze, the fate of two species hung in the balance. The defiant Iridian princess, saved by human compassion, was about to change the course of the interstellar war. As Odin's eyes fluttered open, meeting Derek's determined gaze, the fate of two species hung in the balance. The defiant Iridian princess, saved by human compassion, was about to change the course of the interstellar war. Derek leaned closer, his voice low and urgent. "Princess, I need you to tell me everything you know about your fleet's movements." Odin's alien features contorted in pain as she tried to speak. Before she could utter a word, the sickbay doors hissed open, revealing Dr. Marcus Boyd, the ship's chief medical officer. His face was a mask of impossibly strong frustration. "Captain, a word?" Dr. Boyd gestured to the corridor. Derek nodded, giving Odin a reassuring glance before following the doctor out. As soon as the doors closed behind them, Dr. Boyd's professional demeanor cracked. "Sir, with all due respect, we're burning through our medical supplies at an alarming rate," he said, gesturing towards the sickbay. "We have our own wounded to tend to. How can you justify using our limited resources on an enemy combatant? Derek took a deep breath, aware of the growing tension among his crew. Doctor, I understand your concerns, but Princess Odin isn't just any enemy. She's a high-ranking member of the Iridian Empire with access to crucial intelligence. The information in her head could save countless human lives. Dr. Boyd's expression softened slightly, but doubt still lingered in his eyes. And you're certain she'll cooperate? I'm working on it, Derek replied, his tone confident despite his inner uncertainty. For now, I need you to keep her stable. Can you do that? After a moment's hesitation, Dr. Boyd nodded. I'll do my best, Captain, but I hope you know what you're doing. As they re-entered sickbay, a priority communication alert flashed on Derek's personal device. He excused himself and made his way to the nearest secure terminal. The stern face of Admiral Helena Frost filled the screen, her eyes hard as steel. Captain Gordon, I've been briefed on your guest, she said, her disapproval evident in every syllable. You are hereby ordered to transfer the Iridian Princess to our high-security detention facility on Proxima Station immediately. Derek's heart sank. He knew what awaited Odin at such a facility, brutal interrogation methods that often left prisoners broken in body and mind. Admiral, with respect, Princess Odin is still recovering from severe injuries. Moving her now could jeopardize... Your concerns are noted, Captain, Admiral Frost cut him off. But this isn't a request. You have your orders. Frost out. The screen went black, leaving Derek staring at his own reflection. He knew he had to act fast. Rushing back to sickbay, he found Odin more alert, her alien eyes tracking his every move. Princess, he said, pulling up a chair beside her bed, I need you to tell me what you know about your Empire's war plans. Now. Odin's gaze hardened. Why should I betray my people to you, human? Because your people betrayed you first, Derek countered, watching her reaction closely. They left you behind, wounded and alone on an enemy ship. Why protect those who abandoned you? A flicker of pain crossed Odin's features, quickly replaced by cold calculation. Even if what you say is true, what guarantee do I have for my safety if I cooperate? Derek leaned in, his voice low and intense. I give you my word as an officer and a human being. I will do everything in my power to ensure you're treated fairly. But I need something from you first, something to prove your willingness to help us. Odin studied him for a long moment, her alien features unreadable. Finally, she spoke. The Iridian High Command has developed a new type of stealth technology. It allows our ships to approach enemy targets undetected until the moment of attack. Derek's eyes widened. This information alone could save countless lives. As he opened his mouth to ask for more details, the ship's alarm system blared to life. A voice crackled over the intercom, tight with urgency. Captain to the bridge. Unknown vessel approaching at high speed, not responding to hails. Derek sprang to his feet, adrenaline surging through his veins. He turned to Odin, seeing a mixture of fear and recognition in her eyes. It's them, isn't it? They've come for you. Odin nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. The Empire doesn't leave loose ends. Making a split-second decision, Derek called for a security team. We need to move her. Now. As the security officers arrived, Derek briefed them quickly. Take Princess Odin to Maintenance Shaft 7 Alpha. It's rarely used and off most internal sensors. Keep her hidden and protected at all costs. As they carefully moved Odin from her bed, Derek addressed his crew over the ship-wide comm system. All hands, battle stations, this is not a drill. We have a Iridian stealth vessel on an intercept course. Prepare for possible boarding action. The corridors filled with the organized chaos of a crew preparing for battle. Derek made his way to the bridge, his mind racing with strategies and contingencies. As he stepped onto the command deck, his second-in-command approached with a grim expression. Sir, the Iridian ship has matched our speed and vector. They're preparing to board. Derek nodded, his eyebrows furrowed. Alert all security teams. We defend this ship at all costs. He paused, knowing his next words could make or break their chances. And spread the word. We're not just defending ourselves. We're protecting a valuable ally who could turn the tide of this war. Every crew member needs to understand what's at stake here. As the crew rushed to their battle stations, Derek stared at the tactical display showing the approaching Iridian vessel. He knew the next few hours would determine not just the fate of his ship and crew, but potentially the outcome of the entire human-Iridian conflict. The Iridian ship grew larger on the interface, its sleek, predatory design a stark contrast to the utilitarian lines of the human vessel. Derek gripped the arms of his command chair, bracing for impact as the enemy ship executed its final approach. "All hands," he called out, his voice steady despite the tension coursing through him. "Prepare for boarding action. Remember your training, watch out for each other, and no matter what happens, we stand united. Today we fight not just for ourselves, but for the future of humanity." As the first sounds of the Iridian boarding party breaching the airlock echoed through the ship, Derek silently vowed to protect Odin and the vital information she possessed, no matter the consequences. Cost. As the sounds of battle echoed through the ship's corridors, Derek's tenacity hardened. He knew the next few moments would be crucial. Suddenly, the bridge doors burst open with a hiss of hydraulics and a shower of sparks. Commander Zex, flanked by his elite Iridian guards, stormed onto the bridge. Their alien features were twisted with grit, eyes locked on their target. Derek reacted instinctively, positioning himself between the Iridian boarding party and Princess Odin. He could feel the tension in the air, thick and oppressive as both sides faced off, weapons drawn and ready. "Stand down," Derek ordered, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through his veins. "You're outnumbered and outgunned." Commander Zex's lips curled into a snarl. "Hand over the princess, human. This doesn't concern you." Before Derek could respond, Odin stepped forward. Her movements were slow and deliberate, still weak from her injuries. She addressed Commander Zex in their native language, her voice carrying a regal authority despite her condition. Derek couldn't understand the words, but he saw the effect they had on Zex. The commander's eyes widened, his grip on his weapon loosening slightly. Odin's voice grew more intense, her alien features set in a mask of defiance. As she finished speaking, Derek caught the word human in her otherwise incomprehensible speech. He realized she must have threatened to share information about the Empire's war plans. Zex hesitated, his eyes darting between Odin and his troops. Derek seized the moment of uncertainty. He slammed his hand down on a concealed panel in his command chair, activating the ship's emergency protocols. Alarms blared as automated defense systems sprang to life. Force fields crackled into existence, separating the Iridian boarding party from the human crew and Odin. Zex roared in frustration, firing his weapon at the shimmering barrier to no effect. "This way," Derek shouted, grabbing Odin's arm and leading her towards a hidden exit at the rear of the bridge. As they raced through the ship's corridors, they encountered pockets of fierce resistance. Human crew members grappled with Iridian soldiers in close-quarters combat, the confined spaces of the ship leaving little room for ranged weapons. Derek and Odin found themselves working in tandem, their movements complementing each other as if they'd trained together for years. Derek's human combat techniques blended seamlessly with Odin's Iridian fighting style. They fought their way through the chaotic skirmishes, Odin's knowledge of Iridian weak points proving invaluable. As they neared their destination, a priority alert flashed on Derek's communicator. He pulled Odin into an alcove, checking the message. His face paled. "Zex has overridden the bridge security systems," he explained, his voice tight. "He's accessed our internal sensors. They know where we're headed." Odin's alien features set in unwavering dedication. "Then we must move faster." They redoubled their pace, racing towards the escape pod bay. The ship shuddered around them, the sound of weapons fire growing more intense. As they reached the bay doors, alarms blared throughout the ship. A computerized voice echoed through the corridors. "Warning! Iridian vessel has locked weapons on critical systems. Hull breach imminent." Derek's mind raced as he input coordinates into the escape pod's navigation system. "Zex is going to destroy the entire ship," he said, his fingers flying over the controls. "He's trying to eliminate you and all evidence of this failed mission." The pod's systems hummed to life as Derek finished the launch sequence. He turned to Odin, his expression conflicted. "You need to go. Now." Odin's eyes widened in surprise. "You're not coming?" Derek shook his head. "My place is with my crew. I can't abandon them." For a moment, Odin seemed to struggle with an internal conflict. Then, in a move that caught Derek completely off guard, she grabbed his arm and pulled him into the pod with her. "Your crew needs you alive, Captain," she said, her alien features softening slightly. "You can't help them if you're dead." Before Derek could protest, the pod's doors sealed shut. Through the view screen, he saw Commander Zex and his soldiers burst into the bay, their weapons raised. The pod launched with a violent jerk, narrowly evading a barrage of energy blasts from the Iridian troops. As they hurtled away from the battle, Derek and Odin watched in horror as the Iridian vessel opened fire on the human ship. The pod's small viewport filled with the flash of weapons, fire, and explosions. Suddenly, a squadron of sleek, dark shapes emerged from the void of space. Earth's advanced stealth fighters, summoned by Derek's earlier distress call, engaged the Iridian ship. The tide of battle began to turn. Derek allowed himself a moment of relief before turning his attention to their current situation. The escape pod shuddered as it entered the atmosphere of the uncharted planet he'd selected as their destination. Warning lights flashed across the control panel. "Brace for impact!" Derek shouted as the pod plummeted through layers of alien atmosphere. Odin gripped her seat, her knuckles pale against her purple skin. The pod crashed through a canopy of strange, iridescent foliage before slamming into the forest floor. Derek's head snapped forward, then back against his seat. As the ringing in his ears subsided, he became aware of a warm trickle of blood running down his forehead. Beside him, Odin groaned, clutching her side where her earlier wound had reopened. Despite the pain evident in her eyes, she managed to give Derek a wry smile. "It seems we've traded one predicament for another, Captain." Derek nodded, wincing as he unbuckled his harness. "Let's assess the damage and see what we can salvage. We're not out of this yet." As they emerged from the wreckage of the escape pod, Derek and Odin found themselves in a dense, alien forest. Strange, bioluminescent plants cast an eerie glow over the crash site. The air was thick with unfamiliar scents and the calls of unseen creatures. Derek helped Odin from the pod, supporting her weight as they moved away from the smoking wreckage. They needed to find shelter and assess their injuries before nightfall. As the alien sun began to set, painting the sky in hues of green and purple, Derek and Odin huddled together for warmth. They had managed to salvage some supplies from the pod, but they were woefully unprepared for extended survival on this alien world. "We should take turns keeping watch," Derek suggested, scanning the darkening forest around them. "We don't know what kind of predators might be out there." Odin nodded, her alien eyes reflecting the bioluminescent glow of the surrounding plants. "Agreed. I'll take first watch. You need to rest and let that head wound clot properly." As Derek settled in for a fitful sleep, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. In the shadows of the alien forest, unseen eyes observed the strange new arrivals, their presence setting in motion events that would change the fate of this uncharted world. As the alien sun crept above the horizon, Derek stirred from his restless sleep. The forest around them came alive with unfamiliar sounds, chirps, clicks, and low rumbles that sent shivers down his spine. He glanced at Odin, who was already alert, her purple skin glowing softly in the dim light. "Any trouble during the night?" Derek asked, wincing as he touched the dried blood on his forehead. Odin shook her head. "Nothing approached us, but I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched." They surveyed their surroundings in the growing light. The escape pod lay in ruins, smoke still rising from its twisted metal frame. Derek's military instincts kicked in as he began to assess their situation. "We need to prioritize," he said, pulling himself to his feet. "Shelter, water, food, in that order." Odin nodded, her face tight with pain as she stood. "I can help identify potential food sources. My people have studied various alien flora extensively." As Derek gathered materials to construct a makeshift shelter, Odin examined the nearby plants. She pointed out several species that looked promising, explaining their potential nutritional value and any risks associated with consuming them. By midday, they had erected a crude lean-to using debris from the pod and large leaves from the surrounding vegetation. Derek had also managed to create a small fire pit, though lighting it proved challenging in the humid air. As they worked, Derek couldn't help but notice how seamlessly they cooperated, despite their different backgrounds. Odin's knowledge complemented his practical skills, and they found themselves developing an efficient rhythm. While searching for more resources, Derek stumbled upon something unexpected. Hidden beneath a tangle of iridescent vines, he spotted what appeared to be a smooth artificial surface. "Odin," he called out, "you need to see this." Together, they cleared away the vegetation, revealing a structure of unmistakably artificial origin. Its sleek lines and strange flowing patterns were unlike anything Derek had ever seen. "This isn't Iridian," Odin said, her voice filled with awe. "And it's certainly not human." They explored further, finding more structures hidden beneath the forest growth. It became clear they had stumbled upon the ruins of an ancient civilization, long abandoned and reclaimed by nature. As they investigated a particularly large structure, Derek's foot caught on something. There was a click, followed by a low hum. The ground beneath them shifted, revealing a hidden chamber. Inside, they found a cache of alien technology, partially functional but far more advanced than anything they had seen before. Strange devices lined the walls, their purpose a mystery. "Look at this," Odin said, holding up a small cylindrical object. "I think it's some kind of communication device, but it's damaged." Derek examined it closely. "If we can get it working, we might be able to contact our people." They spent the next few hours examining the technology, Odin's expertise proving invaluable as they deciphered its functions. As they worked, they began to talk, sharing stories of their lives before the war. "I never wanted this conflict," Odin said softly, her hands working deftly on the communication device. "The Empire's expansion, it's not right. We're destroying worlds, cultures. I couldn't stand by and watch anymore." Derek nodded, understanding in his eyes. "I joined up to protect our colonies, our people. But the longer this war goes on, the more I wonder if there's a better way." Their conversation was cut short by a distant roar. They rushed outside to see a Uridian scout ship entering the atmosphere, its engines leaving a trail of superheated air. "We need to move," Derek said urgently. "They'll be scanning for life signs." Quickly gathering their supplies, they fled into the forest. Derek spotted a cave entrance hidden behind a curtain of bioluminescent vines. They ducked inside just as the scout ship passed overhead. The cave system was vast, its walls covered in strange glowing organisms that provided natural light. As they ventured deeper, the tunnels opened into larger chambers, some showing signs of artificial shaping. "This goes beyond simple caves," Odin whispered. "These were inhabited." They pressed on, driven by a mixture of curiosity and the need to stay hidden. After what felt like hours of walking, they emerged into a massive cavern. At its center stood a structure that took their breath away, a hidden outpost, its architecture a blend of organic and technological elements. As they approached, holographic interfaces sprang to life, displaying information in an unknown language. Odin managed to activate a central console, and a three-dimensional projection filled the air above them. It showed the history of the planet's original inhabitants, a highly advanced species that had achieved incredible technological feats, but their civilization had been wiped out by a cataclysmic event thousands of years ago. "This is incredible," Derek breathed, watching the holographic story unfold. "Think of what we could learn from—" His words were cut off by a sudden alarm. The outpost security system had activated, perceiving them as intruders. Ancient defense drones emerged from hidden compartments, their weapons powering up with an ominous hum. Derek and Odin found themselves fighting for their lives, dodging energy blasts and retaliating with whatever weapons they had. Derek's combat training came into play as he maneuvered through the chamber, drawing fire away from Odin. Odin, for her part, used her knowledge of alien technology to try and disable the security system. She darted from console to console, her fingers flying over unfamiliar interfaces. In a heart-stopping moment, Derek found himself in the path of a drone's energy blast with nowhere to dodge. Suddenly, Odin was there, pushing him aside. The blast grazed her shoulder, leaving a smoldering wound. With a final override, Odin managed to deactivate the security system. The drones powered down, leaving the chamber in eerie silence. Derek rushed to Odin's side, examining her injury. "You saved my life," he said, his voice thick with emotion. Odin met his gaze, her alien eyes filled with an intensity that made Derek's breath catch. "We're in this together now," she said softly. As Derek tended to her wound, they became acutely aware of their closeness. A moment of unspoken attraction passed between them, charged with the adrenaline of their recent fight and the growing bond they had formed. The moment was broken by a blinking light on the central console. The outpost sensors had detected multiple ships entering the atmosphere, both human and Iridian. "They've found us," Derek said, his mind racing. "But why so many ships?" Odin's eyes widened as she examined the console's readouts. "Derek, look at this. The outpost activation must have sent out some kind of signal. And there's information here about a superweapon, something capable of destroying entire fleets." The implications hit them both simultaneously. If either the humans or the Iridians got their hands on this weapon, the war would escalate beyond imagination. Derek and Odin looked at each other, the weight of their discovery heavy between them. They had a decision to make, one that would impact not only their own lives, but the fate of their entire species. As the sounds of distant ships grew louder, Derek and Odin prepared themselves for the coming confrontation. Whatever they decided, they knew their actions in the next few hours would shape the course of the war and potentially the future of both their civilizations. The ancient outpost hummed around them, its secrets waiting to be unveiled. Outside, two warring factions converged on their location, unaware of the true power hidden beneath the planet's surface. Derek and Odin stood at the center of it all, their newfound alliance about to face its greatest test. Their newfound alliance was about to face its greatest challenge yet. Derek's mind raced as he processed the incoming information. "We need to act fast," he said, his voice tight with urgency. "If either side gets their hands on this superweapon, it's game over for everyone." Odin nodded, her purple skin gleaming with a sheen of sweat. "Agreed. But how do we stop two entire fleets?" Derek's eyes swept across the ancient control room, taking in the advanced technology surrounding them. "We use their own tools against them," he said, a plan forming in his mind. Together, they worked swiftly to set up a defensive perimeter using the outpost systems. Odin's knowledge of alien tech proved invaluable as she reconfigured the communication array to broadcast on both human and Iridian frequencies. As they worked, the sound of boots echoed through the corridors. Derek tensed, raising his weapon. A group of human Marines burst into the room, led by a familiar face. "Lieutenant Commander Boyd," Derek said, lowering his gun slightly. Sarah Boyd's eyes widened in surprise, then narrowed as she spotted Odin. "Captain, what's going on here? Why are you with a Iridian?" Derek stepped forward, hands raised. "Sarah, listen to me. The situation has changed. This outpost contains technology beyond our wildest dreams, including a superweapon capable of destroying entire fleets." Boyd's grip on her weapon tightened. "All the more reason to secure it for Earth, sir." "No," Derek said firmly. "If either side gets this weapon, the war will escalate beyond imagination. We have a chance to end this conflict here and now." As Derek explained the situation, Boyd's expression shifted from suspicion to cautious interest. Slowly, she signaled her team to lower their weapons. The moment of relief was short-lived. Alarms blared as another group breached the outpost's defenses. A squad of Iridian soldiers stormed in, led by a towering figure in ornate armor. "Sub-Commander Kraz," Odin breathed, recognizing her former bodyguard. The two groups faced each other, weapons raised, the air thick with tension. Odin stepped forward, her voice ringing with authority. "Stand down, all of you. By my authority as a member of the royal family, I command it." Kraz hesitated, his eyes darting between Odin and the humans. "Your Highness, you've been missing for weeks. We thought—" "I've seen the truth, Kraz," Odin interrupted. "This war, our empire's expansion, it's wrong. We have a chance to change everything." As Odin explained the situation to the Iridians, Derek noticed Boyd watching the exchange with growing curiosity. Slowly, both sides lowered their weapons, an uneasy truce forming in the face of a greater threat. Suddenly, the outpost systems flared to life. Holographic displays showed multiple capital ships entering the atmosphere. The main forces of both fleets had arrived. "We're out of time," Derek said, rushing to the central console. "Odin, help me broadcast a message to both fleets." Working together, they configured the communication array. Derek took a deep breath and began to speak, his voice carried to every ship in orbit. "This is Captain Derek Hawkins of Earth Force. I'm here with Princess Odin of the Iridian Empire. We've discovered an ancient outpost containing a superweapon capable of destroying entire fleets. We urge both sides to cease fire immediately and open negotiations. The power contained here could destabilize the entire galaxy if misused." Odin stepped forward, adding her voice to the broadcast. "This is a chance for peace, for both our peoples to move forward together. Please, stand down and let us find a better way." For a moment there was silence. Then a familiar voice crackled through the speakers. "This is Admiral Helena Frost. All Earth Force ships, maintain position and cease fire. We're listening, Captain." Derek felt a surge of hope, but it was short-lived. The Iridian fleet continued its advance, weapons primed. Odin's face paled. "Father, please," she pleaded, addressing High Commander Vex directly. "The Empire's ways are wrong. We've been lied to, manipulated. This war will destroy us all if we don't stop it now." For a tense moment, it seemed as if her words had fallen on deaf ears. Then, just as hope began to fade, the unthinkable happened. The ancient outpost's defenses activated with a deafening hum. A massive energy shield burst forth, enveloping the entire planet in a shimmering bubble. Both fleets found themselves unable to advance or retreat, trapped in a stalemate of the outpost's making. A synthesized voice echoed through the facility and across all communication channels. "Attention, sentient beings. This facility has determined that both species present a potential threat to galactic stability. Lockdown protocol initiated. You will remain here until you demonstrate the ability to coexist peacefully. Failure to do so will result in the activation of the superweapon and the destruction of this planet." Derek and Odin exchanged glances, the weight of their new reality settling upon them. They were now responsible not just for their own lives, but for the fate of two species and possibly the entire galaxy. "Well," Derek said, a wry smile crossing his face, "I guess we'd better start figuring out how to get along." Odin nodded, her hand finding his in a gesture of solidarity. "Together," she said softly. As the humans and Iridians in the room looked at each other with a mixture of suspicion and curiosity, Derek and Odin knew their work was just beginning. The ancient outpost held secrets that could change everything, if they could unlock them in time. With a shared nod of grit, they turned to face their companions. It was time to explore the depths of the facility and uncover the trials that awaited them. The path to peace would not be easy, but for the first time in years, it felt possible. As the humans and Iridians in the room exchanged wary glances, Derek and Odin knew their work was just beginning. The ancient outpost held secrets that could change everything, if they could unlock them in time. A holographic interface materialized before them, its ethereal light casting an otherworldly glow on the assembled group. The synthesized voice spoke again. "To prove your worthiness, you must complete a series of trials. Success will grant you access to the knowledge of our civilization. Failure will result in the activation of the superweapon." Derek took a deep breath, squaring his shoulders. "Looks like we don't have much choice. We'll have to work together if we want to get out of this alive." Odin nodded, her expression resolute. "Agreed. Let's show them what we can do when we set aside our differences." The first trial manifested as a complex, three-dimensional maze that filled the chamber. Glowing barriers separated sections, and ominous clicking sounds suggested hidden traps. "Our engineers can disable the traps," Lieutenant Commander Boyd offered, gesturing to her team. Kraz, the Iridian sub-commander, stepped forward. "And our technicians can interface with the alien systems to map the maze." Derek and Odin exchanged a quick glance, both recognizing the potential of combining their strengths. "Let's do it," Derek said, nodding to both teams. As they worked their way through the maze, human ingenuity complemented Iridian technological prowess. Derek's quick thinking helped them avoid a collapsing floor section, while Odin's understanding of alien systems allowed them to bypass a deadly energy barrier. Hours later, exhausted but triumphant, the mixed group of humans and Iridians emerged from the maze. The AI's voice rang out, "First trial complete, proceeding to second trial." The chamber shifted, transforming into a sterile laboratory environment. Holographic projections displayed the spread of a virulent pathogen across a simulated planet. "Contain the outbreak," the AI instructed. "Failure will result in the death of millions." Dr. Marcus Boyd, who had accompanied the human search party, stepped forward. "I'm a virologist. I can help with this." A Iridian in ornate robes approached. "I am Zinthar, Chief Medical Officer of the Iridian Fleet. Perhaps we can combine our knowledge?" As the two scientists began their work, Derek and Odin coordinated the efforts of their teams to gather data and test potential cures. The collaboration was tense at first, with both sides hesitant to share information. But as the simulated death toll rose, barriers began to break down. "There!" Dr. Boyd exclaimed, pointing to a complex molecular structure on the screen. "The pathogen has a unique protein shell that our treatments can't penetrate." Zinthar's eyes widened. "But our phase shift technology could potentially bypass it. If we combine that with your targeted antibodies..." The two scientists worked feverishly, their teams supporting them as they raced against time. Finally, a synthesized cure emerged from their combined efforts. As the holographic displays showed the pathogen receding, a palpable sense of relief washed over the room. Humans and Iridians alike shared looks of newfound respect. The AI's voice echoed once more. "Second trial complete, lockdown restrictions partially lifted." The main doors of the outpost slid open, revealing a bustling encampment outside. More personnel from both fleets had arrived, including two figures that commanded immediate attention: Admiral Helena Frost of Earth Force and High Commander Vex of the Iridian Empire. Derek snapped to attention, while Odin bowed her head respectfully to her father. The two leaders surveyed the scene, their expressions a mix of curiosity and caution. "Captain Hawkins," Admiral Frost said, her voice crisp. "Report." As Derek explained the situation, he noticed High Commander Vex listening intently, his gaze occasionally flickering to his daughter. "And you believe this cooperation is the key to unlocking the outpost's knowledge?" Vex asked, his tone measured. Odin stepped forward. "Father, I've seen what we can accomplish when we work together. The potential here goes beyond weapons or territory. We have a chance to learn from a civilization far more advanced than our own." Admiral Frost's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. "And what of the superweapon? The strategic advantage it could provide?" The AI interrupted, its voice filling the chamber. "Final trial commencing. You must make a choice." A holographic representation of the superweapon appeared before them, its destructive potential clear for all to see. "You may claim this weapon for your own use," the AI continued, "or you may reject it in favor of peace. Choose wisely." The room fell silent as the weight of the decision pressed down on them all. Derek and Odin exchanged a long look, unspoken understanding passing between them. Derek turned to Admiral Frost. "With all due respect, Admiral, using that weapon would only escalate the conflict. We've seen what we can achieve through cooperation. I believe that's the path forward." Odin faced her father, her chin raised defiantly. "The Empire's expansion has cost us dearly, Father. Perhaps it's time we explored a different way." For a tense moment, it seemed as if neither leader would budge. Then, almost simultaneously, they nodded. "We reject the weapon," Admiral Frost and High Commander Vex said in unison. The AI's response was immediate. "Choice accepted. You have proven yourselves worthy of our knowledge. The lockdown protocol is now fully deactivated." As the tensions in the room began to ease, Derek and Odin found themselves standing apart from the others, overlooking the alien landscape through a massive viewport. "We did it," Derek said softly, allowing himself a small smile. Odin's hand found his, their fingers intertwining. "We did," she agreed, her voice equally low. but I suspect our greatest challenges are yet to come. Their eyes met, and in that moment, the attraction that had been building between them became impossible to ignore. Derek felt his heart race, acutely aware of how close they were standing. But before either of them could speak, alarms blared throughout the outpost. Security feeds flickered to life, showing two separate groups breaching the perimeter. One human, one Iridian. Extremists, Odin hissed, recognizing the insignia on the Iridian group's armor. Derek's teeth clenched as he spotted a familiar face leading the human separatist. Colonel Axel Hawk. I should have known he'd try something like this. They shared a determined look, both understanding what needed to be done. We'll form a joint task force, Derek said, already moving towards Admiral Frost and High Commander Vex. Human and Iridian operatives working together. Odin nodded, falling into step beside him. Agreed. We'll show them the strength of our newfound alliance. As they began to outline their plan to the leaders, Derek couldn't help but feel a mix of anticipation and dread. The peace they had worked so hard to achieve hung by a thread, threatened by those who couldn't see beyond their own prejudices. But looking at Odin, seeing the commitment in her eyes, Derek felt a surge of hope. Together, they had already accomplished the impossible. Now, they would fight to protect the future they had glimpsed. A future of cooperation, understanding, and perhaps something more between them. The joint task force assembled quickly, a mix of human and Iridian elite operatives. As Derek and Odin briefed them on the mission to apprehend Colonel Hawk and Matriarch Zira, they could see the skepticism in some eyes fade, replaced by a growing sense of common purpose. With the fate of two civilizations hanging in the balance, they prepared to move out. The ancient outpost hummed around them, its secrets still largely unexplored. But for Derek and Odin, the most important discovery had been the potential for peace and the unexpected connection they had formed with each other. The ancient outpost hummed around them, its secrets still largely unexplored. But for Derek and Odin, the most important discovery had been the potential for peace and the unexpected connection they had formed with each other. As they moved through the dimly lit corridors of the outpost's lower levels, Derek felt a heightened sense of alertness. The joint task force moved with practiced efficiency, human and Iridian operatives working in seamless coordination. Odin walked beside him, her eyes scanning the alien architecture for any signs of danger. Energy signatures detected ahead, a Iridian technician whispered, his handheld device pulsing with soft blue light. Derek nodded, signaling the team to take defensive positions. Looks like we've found our targets. Remember, we need them alive. As they approached a massive set of interlocking doors, a holographic interface sprang to life. Alien symbols danced across its surface, a daunting barrier to their progress. I've got this, Odin said, stepping forward. Her fingers moved deftly across the interface, decoding the ancient language with remarkable speed. Derek watched, impressed. Where did you learn to do that? A small smile played at the corners of Odin's lips. Let's just say I had a rebellious phase in my youth. Breaking into secure Iridian databases was a hobby. The doors slid open with a pneumatic hiss, revealing a vast chamber beyond. Derek's tactical instincts kicked in as he assessed the space. We'll split up here. Odin, take your team and head for the eastern section. That's likely where we'll find Matriarch Zira. I'll lead the rest to intercept Colonel Hawk. Odin nodded, her expression serious. Be careful, Derek. Hawk is dangerous. You too, Derek replied, their eyes meeting for a moment. May your aim be true. As the task force divided, Derek led his team through a series of winding passages. The outpost's alien design made conventional tactics challenging, but they adapted, using the unusual angles and sudden open spaces to their advantage. Suddenly, the air was filled with the sharp crack of weapons fire. Derek ducked behind a curved pillar as energy bolts sizzled past. Contact! He shouted, returning fire with practiced precision. Colonel Hawk's voice echoed through the chamber. Stand down, Hawkins. You're fighting on the wrong side. Derek gritted his teeth, advancing under the cover of his team's suppressing fire. There are no sides anymore, Hawk. We're trying to build something better. The firefight intensified, both groups using the alien architecture for cover. Derek's mind raced, analyzing the flow of battle. He spotted a raised platform that offered a tactical advantage and signaled to his team. They moved in perfect synchronization, outflanking Hawk's forces. Meanwhile, Odin's team encountered a different kind of resistance. As they entered a vast laboratory, swirling holograms and pulsing energy fields created a disorienting landscape. Matriarch Zira's voice cut through the chaos. "Traitor, you would throw away everything our people have built." Odin's response was calm but firm. "We're building something new, Zira, something better than endless war." The two Iridian groups engaged in a battle of technology and wits. Odin's knowledge of Iridian military tactics allowed her to anticipate Zira's moves, countering each attempt to seize control of the outpost systems. As the conflicts escalated, the outpost itself seemed to react. Alarms blared, and sections of the facility began to seal themselves off. Derek found himself cut off from half of his team, trapped in a central control room with Colonel Hawk. "Looks like it's just you and me now, boy," Hawk snarled, lunging forward. Derek met the attack head-on, his military training kicking in. They grappled fiercely, crashing into ancient consoles and delicate equipment. A stray blow struck a control panel, sending arcs of energy crackling through the room. Warning klaxons intensified as Derek felt the floor vibrate beneath him. "The core," he realized with a jolt of fear. "It's destabilizing." In the laboratory, Odin faced a crisis of her own. Matriarch Zira, cornered and desperate, had activated an alien artifact. A swarm of silvery nanobots poured forth, consuming everything in their path. "What have you done?" Odin gasped, backing away from the advancing cloud of destruction. Zira's eyes were wide with a mixture of fear and awe. "If I can't have this technology, no one will." Odin's mind raced, searching for a solution. She spotted a set of containment fields and made a split-second decision. Activating the fields, she trapped herself in the laboratory with Zira and the nanobot swarm. As alarms echoed through the outpost, Derek and Odin found themselves separated by impenetrable bulkheads, each facing a potentially catastrophic threat. Their eyes met through a small view screen, a world of unspoken emotions passing between them. "Derek," Odin's voice crackled through the comm system. "I think I can stop the nanobots, but it's risky. I might not—" "Do what you have to do," Derek interrupted, his voice tight with emotion. "I trust you. I've got my own problems here with the core, but we'll find a way through this. Together." As they prepared to take their respective risks to save the outpost and each other, Derek and Odin shared a moment of connection that transcended words. The challenges ahead were daunting, but in that instant, they both knew that whatever the outcome, they had found something rare and precious in each other. A partnership that could bridge the gap between their two species and perhaps change the course of history. With revitalized commitment, they turned to face their tasks, the fate of two civilizations hanging in the balance. Balance. With renewed commitment, Derek turned his attention to the destabilizing core. His fingers flew across the alien interface, deciphering patterns and rewriting base code. Sweat beaded on his forehead as he raced against time, the facility shuddering around him. Suddenly, a flash of insight struck. Derek saw the underlying structure of the outpost's operating system, a complex web of interconnected protocols. He began to weave new instructions into the fabric of the code, his mind working in perfect synchronicity with the ancient technology. A low hum filled the air as the core stabilized. Derek allowed himself a brief moment of relief before focusing on his next task. He navigated through the system's lockdown protocols, searching for a way to unseal the bulkheads separating him from Odin. In the laboratory, Odin faced her own desperate battle. The swarm of nanobots continued to advance, consuming everything in its path. Zira watched with a mixture of fear and fascination as the tiny machines devoured equipment and furniture alike. Odin's eyes darted around the room, seeking a solution. Her gaze fell upon a containment field generator, and an idea began to form. With quick, precise movements, she recalibrated the device, altering its output to emit a specific frequency. The nanobots reacted immediately, their behavior changing as they responded to the new signal. Odin adjusted the frequency, guiding the swarm away from the lab's vital equipment. She directed the nanobots towards the damage they had already caused, watching in amazement as they began to repair and reconstruct. Impossible, Zira breathed, her eyes wide with disbelief. Odin allowed herself a small smile. Not impossible, just cooperation. With a final adjustment, Odin sent the nanobot swarm towards Zira. The matriarch tried to back away, but found herself quickly enveloped in a shimmering cocoon of microscopic machines. At that moment, the bulkhead separating the laboratory from the rest of the facility slid open. Derek stood in the doorway, his expression a mixture of relief and concern. "Odin," he said, stepping forward, "are you all right?" She nodded, her eyes meeting his. "I'm fine, and I think I've found a way to contain our Iridian problem." Together they made their way to the central chamber, guiding the immobilized Zira and a subdued Colonel Hawk. Admiral Frost and High Commander Vex were waiting, their faces etched with a mixture of concern and curiosity. "Report," Admiral Frost demanded, his eyes scanning the group. Derek stepped forward. "Sir, we've neutralized the immediate threats. The facility is stable, and we've apprehended the leaders of both extremist groups." High Commander Vex's gaze lingered on the nanobot cocoon surrounding Zira. "Impressive," he muttered. "And what of the outpost systems?" "Under our control," Odin replied. "We've gained access to the AI's database and advanced systems. It seems the AI recognizes us as worthy of its knowledge." The leaders exchanged glances, the weight of this development clear in their expressions. Admiral Frost cleared his throat. "Well done, both of you. Your actions here today have not only saved this facility, but may have paved the way for lasting peace between our species." As if on cue, the outpost's AI materialized before them. "Correct, Admiral. The actions of Derek Hawkins and Odin Vex have demonstrated the potential for cooperation between humans and Iridians. As such, I grant them full access to my systems and database." The chamber fell silent as the implications of this announcement sank in. Derek and Odin shared a look of quiet triumph, but their moment was interrupted by a bitter laugh from Colonel Hawk. "You fools," he spat. "You think this changes anything? You have no idea what you're up against." Odin's eyes narrowed. "What do you mean?" Zira's voice came from within her nanobot prison, strained but clear. "The war is bigger than any of us. There are forces at work that will never allow peace between our species." Derek stepped closer to the captives. "Explain yourselves." With grudging respect for their captors' abilities, Hawk and Zira revealed the existence of the Eternal Conflict Syndicate. They spoke of a shadow organization that had infiltrated both human and Iridian governments, manipulating events to prolong the war for their own gain. As the full scope of the conspiracy became clear, Derek felt a chill run down his spine. He turned to Odin, seeing his own purpose reflected in her eyes. Their mission was far from finished. Admiral Frost's voice cut through the tension. "This is a grave development. We must act quickly to root out this syndicate." High Commander Vex nodded in agreement. "But we must do so carefully. If they have indeed infiltrated our governments, we can trust no one but ourselves." The AI's holographic form flickered. "I have detected an anomaly within my systems. A hidden transmission beacon has been sending data about this facility's technology to an unknown location." Derek stepped forward, his mind already racing with possibilities. "Can you trace the signal?" The AI paused for a moment, its form shimmering as it processed the request. "Affirmative. The signal leads to a location on one of the system's outer planets." Odin's eyes lit up with understanding. "A secret base. It has to be." Admiral Frost and High Commander Vex exchanged glances, a silent agreement passing between them. Frost spoke first, his voice carrying the weight of command. "We're authorizing a joint human-Iridian task force to investigate this base. Derek, Odin, given your unique experience and the trust you've built between our species, you'll lead this mission." As preparations for the mission began in earnest, Derek and Odin found themselves alone for a moment in a quiet corner of the outpost. The events of the past few hours hung heavily between them, unspoken emotions simmering beneath the surface. Odin broke the silence first. "Derek, He met her gaze, seeing in her eyes the same mix of uncertainty and longing that he felt. Without another word, he closed the distance between them, their lips meeting in a kiss that spoke volumes. It was tender and passionate, a culmination of the trust and admiration that had grown between them. When they finally parted, Derek rested his forehead against Odin's. "I know this won't be easy," he said softly. "But whatever comes next, we face it together." Odin nodded, a small smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "Together," she agreed. As they made their way to the hangar where their ship awaited, Derek and Odin knew that the challenges ahead were greater than anything they had faced before. The fate of two civilizations rested on their shoulders, and the shadow of the Eternal Conflict Syndicate loomed large. The Joint Task Force boarded their vessels, a mix of human and Iridian ships united under a common cause. As Derek and Odin's ship took the lead, the fleet lifted off, leaving the ancient outpost behind and heading towards an uncertain future on the outer edges of the solar system. As their ships pierced the atmosphere of the distant planet, Derek and Odin's vessel took point, leading the joint human-Iridian fleet towards the coordinates of the mysterious signal. The barren landscape below gave way to a sprawling complex, partially concealed beneath the planet's rocky surface. At its center stood an enormous hangar, housing a massive warship unlike anything they had ever seen. "That's no ordinary vessel," Odin said, her eyes narrowing as she studied the readouts. "It's a fusion of human and Iridian technology." Derek nodded grimly. "The Syndicate's been busy. We need to neutralize that ship before it becomes operational." As they approached, the complex's defense system sprang to life. Energy beams lanced out from concealed turrets, forcing the fleet to take evasive action. The Joint Task Force engaged the Syndicate's defensive measures, creating a chaotic battleground in the skies above the facility. Amidst the aerial combat, Derek and Odin's ship slipped through a gap in the defenses, making a daring landing in a secondary hangar near the partially constructed warship. As they disembarked, the sounds of battle echoed through the cavernous space. "We don't have much time," Derek said, checking his weapon. "The task force can't hold them off forever." Odin nodded, her expression determined. "We need to reach the power core. If we can overload it, we'll render the entire ship useless." They moved swiftly through the facility, their complementary skills allowing them to bypass security systems with ease. Derek's tactical training helped them avoid patrol routes, while Odin's technical expertise allowed them to hack through locked doors and override security protocols. As they neared the heart of the warship, they encountered a heavily guarded section. Derek held up a hand, signaling Odin to stop. They watched as a group of scientists, both human and Iridian, were escorted past under heavy guard. "Prisoners," Odin whispered. "The Syndicate must be forcing them to work on the ship." Derek's teeth clenched. "We can't leave them here. We'll need to free them on our way out." They continued their infiltration, narrowly avoiding detection several times. In one close call, they ducked into a maintenance shaft as a patrol passed by, pressed close together in the cramped space. Derek could feel Odin's heartbeat, fast but steady, matching his own elevated pulse. Finally, they reached the massive chamber housing the warship's power core. The sight was awe-inspiring. A pulsing orb of energy suspended in a complex array of machinery, a perfect melding of human and Iridian engineering. "We need to overload it without causing a catastrophic explosion," Odin said, already moving towards a control panel. As they worked to sabotage the core, alarms suddenly blared throughout the facility. "Intruder alert! All security personnel to the power core!" Derek and Odin shared a look of unwavering dedication. "We need more time," Odin said, her fingers flying over the alien interface. "I'll buy you some," Derek replied, taking up a defensive position at the chamber's entrance. The first wave of Syndicate forces arrived moments later. Derek engaged them in a fierce firefight, using the chamber's infrastructure as cover. His military training served him well as he held off the attackers, but he knew they couldn't last long against the full might of the Syndicate. Just as Derek's position was about to be overrun, a group of freed prisoners arrived, led by one of the scientists they had seen earlier. "We're here to help," the scientist called out, tossing Derek a Syndicate weapon. With the added support, Derek was able to hold the line while Odin completed the sabotage. The power core began to pulse erratically, its glow intensifying. "It's done," Odin shouted. "We need to evacuate now." They fought their way out of the chamber, the freed prisoners providing crucial assistance. As they ran through the corridors of the massive warship, they could feel the vessel shuddering around them as systems began to fail. "There!" Derek pointed to a row of escape pods. "Everyone in!" They piled into the pods, launching just as the warship's power core went critical. From the viewport, they watched as the massive vessel's lights flickered and died, its imposing form now nothing more than a useless hulk. Their pod crash-landed in the midst of the ongoing ground battle between the Joint Task Force and the Syndicate forces. As Derek and Odin emerged from the wreckage, they found themselves surrounded by enemy troops. In a desperate move, Derek reached for a small device he had taken from the ancient outpost. "I hope this works," he muttered, activating the signal beacon. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the ground began to tremble. Ancient structures rose from beneath the planet's surface, revealing long-dormant defense systems. Automated turrets sprang to life, targeting the Syndicate forces with unerring accuracy. Energy shields flickered into existence, protecting the human Iridian Alliance troops. The tide of battle turned dramatically. The Syndicate forces, caught off guard by the ancient defenses, began to retreat. Derek and Odin seized the opportunity, rallying their allies for a final push towards the Syndicate's command center. As they fought their way through the complex, Derek couldn't help but marvel at how in sync he and Odin had become. They moved as one, covering each other's blind spots, their fighting styles perfectly complementary. Finally, they reached the command center. Inside, they found the masterminds behind the Eternal Conflict Syndicate, a human general with a scarred face and a Iridian High Counselor, both wearing expressions of defiant anger. "You fools," the human general snarled. "Don't you see? Conflict is what drives us forward. It's what makes us strong." Odin stepped forward, her voice firm. "No, it's cooperation that makes us strong. Look at what we've accomplished together, what we've built." The Iridian counselor sneered. "Naive idealism. Our species are destined to be enemies." "You're wrong," Derek said, standing shoulder to shoulder with Odin. "We're proof of that." Before the confrontation could escalate further, the doors burst open. Admiral Frost and High Commander Vex strode in, flanked by Alliance troops. "It's over," Admiral Frost declared. "Your forces are defeated. Your warship is neutralized. Surrender now." With their plans in ruins and their forces routed, the Syndicate leaders had no choice but to comply. As they were led away, Derek and Odin shared a look of relief and something deeper, a connection forged in the heat of battle and the promise of a shared future. As the cleanup began and the Joint Task Force secured the facility, Derek and Odin found a moment alone. They stood at a viewport, watching as shuttles ferried prisoners and freed scientists back to the fleet. "So," Derek said, a hint of a smile on his face, "what happens now?" Odin's hand found his, their fingers intertwining. "Now? Now we build something new. Together." They turned as Admiral Frost approached, his face serious but with a glimmer of hope in his eyes. "We've got a lot of work ahead of us," he said. "The discovery of this ancient technology, the aftermath of the Syndicate's defeat, there's going to be a lot of questions, a lot of challenges." Derek and Odin straightened, ready to face whatever came next. "Where do we start, sir?" Derek asked. Frost's expression softened slightly. "We start by returning to the outpost. There's still so much to learn, and now, with our species truly working together, who knows what we might discover." As they prepared to depart, Derek and Odin looked out once more at the alien landscape. The battle was won, but they both knew that their journey, and the journey of their two species towards a shared future, was only beginning. As their shuttle docked with the ancient outpost, Derek and Odin shared a moment of quiet reflection, their hands intertwined. "It feels different coming back here," Derek said, his voice low, "like we're returning to where it all started." Odin nodded, her eyes scanning the familiar yet alien structure. "We've come so far since then. Who knows what else we might discover?" The joint human Iridian research team disembarked, eager to unravel more secrets of the long-lost civilization. Days stretched into weeks as they delved deeper into the outpost systems, decoding ancient data banks and studying artifacts. Derek and Odin worked side by side, their unique bond allowing them to interpret the alien technology in ways that eluded others. They made breakthrough after breakthrough, piecing together the history of a civilization far more advanced than their own. One morning, as they pored over a newly discovered database, the Outpost's AI materialized before them, its holographic form flickering with urgency. "Alert," it announced, its voice echoing through the chamber. Multiple unidentified vessels detected entering the system. Derek's head snapped up, meeting Odin's concerned gaze. "Human? Iridian?" The AI's form shimmered as it processed the data. "Negative. The vessels match no known configurations in my database." Admiral Frost and High Commander Vex rushed into the room, their faces etched with concern. "We've detected them too," Frost said, his voice tense. "They're not responding to hails." As the team gathered around the central holographic display, the mysterious fleet came into view. The ships were unlike anything they had ever seen, sleek organic forms that seemed to flow through space rather than cut through it. Suddenly, a transmission crackled through the outpost's communication system. A melodious voice, neither male nor female, filled the air. "Greetings, children of Earth and Iridia. We are the progenitors, creators of this outpost, and the guardians of the weapon you sought to claim. We have come to judge your worthiness." A hush fell over the room, the implications of the message sinking in. Derek and Odin exchanged a look of mixed apprehension and excitement. High Commander Vex stepped forward, her voice steady despite the tension. "We should send a delegation to meet them, show them how far we've come." Admiral Frost nodded in agreement. "Derek, Odin, you two have the most experience with the outpost technology. You're our best chance at making a good first impression." As they prepared to depart, Derek pulled Odin aside. "Are you ready for this?" he asked, searching her eyes. Odin took a deep breath, squaring her shoulders. "As ready as I'll ever be. At least we're facing it together." They boarded a shuttle, their hearts pounding as they ascended towards the alien fleet. As they drew closer, the true scale of the progenitor ships became apparent. The flagship alone dwarfed the largest human or Iridian vessel. A tractor beam gently guided their shuttle into a cavernous docking bay. As the airlock cycled, Derek and Odin steeled themselves for what lay ahead. They stepped out into a vast chamber that seemed to pulse with life. The walls shimmered with colors they had no names for, and the air hummed with an energy that made their skin tingle. A group of beings approached, tall, ethereal creatures with iridescent skin and eyes that held the wisdom of eons. The lead progenitor extended a hand-like appendage in greeting. "Welcome," it said, its voice resonating in their minds rather than their ears. "We have watched your journey with great interest." Derek and Odin introduced themselves, explaining the alliance between humans and Iridians. The progenitors listened intently, their expressions unreadable. "You have surprised us," the lead progenitor said after a moment. "When we left the outpost, we feared your species would destroy each other in their quest for power. Instead, you have forged a bond that transcends your differences." The progenitors led them deeper into the ship, to a chamber filled with swirling, holographic displays. Derek and Odin watched in awe as the history of both their species played out before them. "The outpost was more than a weapon," a progenitor explained. "It was a test designed to see if younger races could overcome their instincts for conflict and work together." As they talked, Derek noticed the progenitors paying particular attention to him and Odin. Their eyes lingered on the couple's joined hands, and they conferred among themselves in hushed tones. Finally, the lead progenitor addressed them directly. "Your bond intrigues us. Never before have we seen two species unite in this way. We would like to study you further, if you are willing." Derek and Odin agreed, curious about what the advanced aliens might discover. They were led to a medical bay unlike anything they had ever seen. As they underwent a series of painless examinations, the progenitors' excitement grew palpable. "Extraordinary," one of them murmured, studying a complex three-dimensional display of DNA strands. "Their genetic structures are compatible. A union between them could produce viable offspring." The revelation hit Derek and Odin like a shockwave. They stared at each other, a mix of emotions playing across their faces: surprise, wonder, and a spark of something new, a possibility they had never dared to consider. The lead progenitor stepped forward, its eyes shimmering with an almost parental pride. If you choose, we can help you conceive a child, a living symbol of unity between your peoples. As Derek and Odin grappled with this unprecedented offer, alarms blared throughout the ship. A junior progenitor rushed into the room, its usual grace replaced by urgent haste. Elders, it said, we've detected a syndicate fleet approaching the system. They seem to have followed the humans and Iridians here. The lead progenitor turned to Derek and Odin, its expression grave. It seems your trial is not yet over. Are you prepared to face this threat together? Derek and Odin shared a look of grit, their earlier shock replaced by resolute focus. They nodded in unison, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, united in purpose and in love. As they raced back to the shuttle, preparing to return to the outpost and rally their forces, the future stretched before them, uncertain, fraught with danger, but bright with possibility. The next chapter of their journey was about to unfold, and they would face it as they had faced everything else, together.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.